Is your baby ready to start solid foods, but you're not sure which foods to start with? In this video, I'm going to show you how to prep 5 easy, safe finger foods that your baby can start self-feeding at 6 months of age. Hi, I'm Ferraro, registered dietitian specializing in baby-led weaning and mom of 7. And each week here on YouTube, I put out new videos on how to safely feed your baby. So be sure to hit subscribe and get notified when new videos are live. Babies can eat so many more foods than we give them credit for. And no, you do not have to wait 3 to 5 days between trying new foods. In fact, waiting too long between foods can actually slow down your baby's progress and hold them back from becoming an independent eater. These are the 5 foods that we're going to cover in this video. Apple, cauliflower, buckwheat, which is a whole grain, beef, we're gonna do a chuck roast, and egg, a potentially allergenic food that we want to introduce to babies early and often. And you can start implementing this menu in week 1 when you start solid foods. Now, if you'd like the menu for these 5 foods plus another 5 for week 2, and I'm going to explain how to do basic preparation, cooking instructions, and how to serve your 6-month-old these foods, I want you guys to download my free feeding guide called 10 Easy Starter Foods. Use the link in the video description to get this free feeding guide. Let's start with apples. Apples can be a huge choking risk if you offer them raw. So no raw, crunchy, or crispy apples for babies. But there is a way you can prepare apples so that they're safe for your baby to eat. You don't have to buy pouches, you don't have to do applesauce, because babies can safely pick up and eat soft pieces of peeled cooked apple. Here's how you prepare apples for babies. Now, I like to use an apple slicer to slice apples, which removes the core. Then you peel off the skins. I generally don't do any skins of fruits or vegetables for early eaters. Next, poach them in a little bit of water for a few minutes until the apples are fork tender, which is basically we're getting the apples to a texture that's safe for your baby to eat. If you're not familiar with poaching, it's a great cooking technique that will help you immensely in making certain foods safe for your baby. So poaching is a method whereby you cook food in a little bit of water, simmering it gently, which softens it, and in the case of fruit, we're making it softer and therefore safer for your baby to eat. When they're cooled, you put those apple slices in a bowl. You can season the apples with nutmeg or cinnamon, and then the babies can safely pick up these soft cooked pieces of apple and feed themselves. And I love to make big batches of these cinnamon cooked apples so that you can have some extra on hand whenever you need them, keeping in mind that babies might need to see a food 10 or 15 times before they like or accept it. So don't stress out if your baby doesn't immediately take to apples. Let's talk about day 2 of starting solid foods, and I like to do baby's first vegetable. I teach a 5-step feeding framework whereby we introduce 5 new foods each week to your baby. We do a new fruit on day 1, a new vegetable on day 2, a starchy food on day 3, a protein on day 4, and then a new allergenic food on day 5 of each week. In 2016, I created the 100 First Foods approach to baby-led weaning, and you can pick the 5 new foods that you're going to offer your baby each week. Pick them off of my 100 First Foods list, which I'll drop in the video description where you can get a copy of that. So the vegetable category on this 100 First Foods list has 20 different vegetables to choose from, and I think cauliflower is a great vegetable to start out your baby with. One thing that I love about cauliflower is that if you cut the floret properly, they have a built-in handle that your baby can use their whole hand or their palmar grasp to pick up that cooked cauliflower floret and bring it to their mouth. Babies don't have their pincer grasp early on in eating, which is why we don't offer small pieces of cut up foods to early eaters. Those can be choking hazards for the early eater, and while it might seem counterintuitive, we actually go with larger pieces of longer, soft cooked foods for early eaters like cooked cauliflower. I use a lot of oil to cover the cauliflower florets before cooking. Use whatever oil you use in your household. I like things like olive oil or avocado oil, but to be honest, any oil works. Season the cauliflower with any sort of no salt seasoning. I like paprika or garlic powder, keeping in mind that babies do not have to eat bland food. Then pop the cauliflower in the oven set to 425 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes or until the cauliflower starts to get golden and nice and soft. Cool it, put the florets on a suction bowl for your baby, and let them go to town. Now, don't expect your baby to eat much at the beginning. Babies need lots of time to learn how to eat, and picking up the food and smashing it and smelling it and eventually getting it in their mouth, that's all part of the full sensory experience that is learning how to eat. Another tip is to look for different colors of cauliflower. We want to mix up the variety of foods that we offer. We can also change the color of vegetables, which is a fun new experience for your baby too. Okay, so we've done a new fruit, apple, a new vegetable, cauliflower. It's day 3, time to start a new starchy food, and I love to do whole grains for babies. Now, when you're looking for carbohydrate foods that your baby can eat, it can be really easy to get stuck in the pasta, rice, and potatoes rut. Whole grains are a great way to offer your baby more nutritious carbohydrates that are packed with fiber and iron, and one of my favorite whole grains for babies is buckwheat. Now, despite its name, buckwheat doesn't actually contain wheat, so we're not tackling the allergenic food wheat here yet. You don't have to buy special baby cereals for your baby. Babies can eat safe versions of the same foods you do, and a hot whole grain cereal like buckwheat, when it's appropriately cooled, can be offered off of a preloaded spoon, and your baby can start learning to self-feed from their very first bite. Another thing that I love about buckwheat cereal is that when it's cooled, you can form buckwheat into little logs that you put out as finger foods, and your baby can pick those up and self-feed, right? Because we want babies eating finger foods early and often, and actually, research shows us that babies who have the least amount of practice with finger foods are actually at elevated risk of choking. So start practicing safe finger foods from the first week. Day 4 of the first week of solid foods, we're gonna try out beef. Now, if your family eats animal foods, it's a good idea to get in the habit of safely offering these foods to your baby too. Meats like beef contain a new taste and texture experience for your baby. Plus, they're good iron foods. Now, we do not offer solid pieces of meat to babies like steak or pork chop, as those are a choking hazard. Instead, my mantra is always, if you can shred the meat between your finger and your thumb, then it's safe for your baby to eat with their gums. One of my favorite cuts of beef for babies is a beef chuck roast. This is a really affordable cut of beef, and while it's technically a lean cut of meat, when you cook a chuck roast low and slow, the protein fibers break down and it gets really nice and tender and easy for babies to eat. You can also do this under pressure, and I always offer lots of additional no salt broth along with the strips of cooked beef, which helps make it safer for the baby to swallow. And don't forget, you can also download my whole list of 10 easy starter foods for babies that has more info about how to make all the foods I'm covering in this video. The link to download that free feeding guide is in the description of this video. Day 5 of the first week of starting solids, and we've done a new fruit, we've done a new vegetable, we've done a starchy food, that was the buckwheat, and your baby's first meat, which was beef. On day 5, I always do an allergenic food, and we pick the allergenic foods from the big 9 allergenic foods. So the big 9 are the 9 foods that account for about 90% of food allergy. And we have some data to suggest that early introduction of the big 9 allergenic foods for your baby can help prevent food allergy down the road. So those big 9 allergenic foods are egg, peanut, cow's milk, wheat, tree nut, fish, shellfish, soy, and sesame. There's no right or wrong allergenic food to start with, and my suggestion is just to do one of the allergenic foods each week, starting in week 1 when you start solid foods. Now, egg is a great one to start with because it's easy. Most people can make eggs. I love to do fried egg strips for babies to pick up and feed to themselves. Now, the egg white is where the protein is, and that's going to be the potentially allergenic part of any food. But the yolk of an egg is where the iron and the other nutrition lives. So since I want baby to get the benefits of both, I like to break the yolk and spread it around the white when I'm frying eggs for baby. Cook until the egg is set, cool it, cut it into strips about the size of your adult pinky finger, put those egg strips in a suction bowl, and let your baby pick them up and feed it to themselves. We want your baby to be getting these allergenic foods in early and often, so do eggs a few times over the next few days. Incorporate those familiar foods from the previous days because they're low risk, they're unlikely to cause an allergic reaction, but I do like to build in like a 2 to 3 day pad over the weekend with no other new foods when we're doing new allergenic foods. If you're looking for ideas on what to do for week 2 when you're starting solid foods, I have that free feeding guide for you called 10 Easy Starter Foods for Babies. Has instructions on how to do all of the 5 foods that I covered in this video, plus 5 more foods for week 2 of starting solid foods. You can download that free feeding guide, which is linked up in the video description. Hit me up in the comments and let me know if you've made any of these foods for your baby, how did it go, or if you're stuck and confused on any of these foods, leave me a question in the comments and I'll do my best to answer.